Hi friends, today the second talk on Father Kappen's philosophy. The topic today is Marx beyond Marxism. Actually, this talk we have two parts. First, we shall think of this first part, that is Marx beyond Marxism, and the second part is what will be Kappen's critique of Marx and Marxism. Now, coming to the first part, Kappen in his writings liberates Marx from Marxism. This is what we want to understand. But for this, we have to first go to Hegel. Hegel, had great influence on Marx. Hegel is known as a dialectical philosopher. His philosophy is qualified as dialectical. But what is this dialectical? What is dialectic? The word dialectic is derived from the word dialogue. So, what happens in a dialogue? If you suppose there is a dialogue between me and you, then in the beginning, I start with a proposition that is called thesis. Then you counter it by negating it, You bring up another proposition that is called antithesis. Then in the course of the discussion, you see, we eliminate the elements of untruth from both thesis and antithesis. Also, we carry over the positive, truthful aspects of both. And finally, we reach synthesis. So the final conclusion, that synthesis, to be really a synthesis, must contain all the truths contained in the thesis and antithesis, and must be devoid of all the elements of untruth in both. That will be a real thesis, so synthesis. Now to Hegel, the whole universe, the world we are living in, everything is undergoing this dialectical process. Every cell of the universe is undergoing this dialectical movement. Then, but what is the starting point? The whole thing started with the idea with a capital I. So in the beginning, there was idea, just a parody of the biblical statement. In the beginning, there was word. And that word became flesh. The idea became the universe, nature. Okay? This is the starting point. This is, just like, suppose I want to build a house. That house, sort of germinates in my mind. It grows there. It takes a full shape within me as an idea, the idea of the house that I want to build. Then what happens? I ask some people to build it with, using their physical labor. A building is built. So what happens? the idea that house which was in my mind has now negated itself as an objective thing, that building. Just like that, the idea that was there in the beginning. Actually, we cannot say even it was there, because it is not a thing. Idea is not a thing, but the nature, the universe is a thing. Then that dialectical process continues. In this dialectical, movement of the whole universe, at a certain stage, a peculiar type of beings arise. That is, human beings. What is so special about this human being? The first being that is self-conscious. We know in the Hegelian sense, self-consciousness, has two parts. This being aware of its own being. The first being that is aware of its own being. And it is aware of itself as a part of the whole universe. That is the, self-conscious human, the first self-conscious element in the universe. Then, so far, in the whole dialectical process, there was no subjective intervention other than that of the initial idea. But now, human beings become active, we become, getting a subjective role in the whole process. Humans work together, they work in the nature, they modify the nature, take things from nature and give new shape, create new things. Like that, the evolution, dialectical evolution continues. Then humans produce new things, like family. Family is a product of the combined effort, combined labor of human beings. Another is morality. So, you may wonder why we say that we are producing the family. We are producing. That what is meant is not that reproduction. See, as per Hegel is concerned, actual labor is mental labor. See, the buildings that we build, the material thing called building, all the factories, they are actually, as concepts in the mind, in the ideal form. They are superior to the material thing that is called a building. So, mental labor is superior to physical labor in Hegel. So, these family, they are mental products. Now, another thing you must remember, this self-conscious human being, that is something in the germinal form, that is the end result of the whole cosmic drama. That end result will be, spirit. So the whole thing starts with the idea, then the idea negates itself and the whole nature comes in, evolves, and the final point is the spirit. That ultimate result, the spirit, that is there in the human being as a sort of sprouting in the human. So the self-conscious human beings is called subjective spirit. And humans together make family, then civil society, the state, all these together is called objective spirit. Then again, there will be conflict between the humans and the morality. Morality also is a human product, mental product of humans. Again, the dialectical, process continues. Finally, everything evolves into the last point, that is the spirit. This is, Hegelian dialectics. Of course, there are so many things more, we cannot go to all the details, but this is just, in a nutshell, the whole of Hegelian dialectical philosophy. Now, let us come to Marx. I told you he was influenced by Hegel. He was influenced by another philosopher also, that is Feuerbach, a materialist. Of course, in the beginning, Marx was called one of the, young Hegelians, just a follower of Hegel. But gradually, Marx, built up his own philosophical edifice. So what he did is, first of all, he didn't want all these metaphysical things like the idea, the spirit, such things, because all such metaphysical things curtail the freedom of humans. So there is, we are not bothered about the starting point or even the end point. Marx is concerned mainly not with the human of Hegel. See, Hegel's human is self-conscious and conscious of the whole universe, part of that, all those things he discards. But humans are social beings. They work together, and our mental labor and physical labor, they are equally important. Then humans produce new things, material things as well as physical things. Not only family, morality, etc. They build new factories, new discoveries they make. They go on evolving together with the nature, and the dialectical process continues. Then, to go further, we must note two key words in Hegel, that is, objectification and alienation. You know what is objectification? See, when I build my house, that house as an idea in my mind is not an object. It is not visible. But once it is actually built by others, maybe even myself, with physical labor, I build it. It is just a building outside me, visible material object. That is objectification. That is the idea which was in my mind. And in a sense, it was myself, that it is myself, my own idea, that is externalized. It has become an object that we can see and touch. Okay? This is objectification. Then what is alienation? Alienation, I alienate myself when I become something other than what I ought to be. That is alienation. I ought to be, a self-conscious human being, conscious of the whole universe and all that, but now I am, sort of represented by that thing, the building, an externalization or materialization of something there was in my mind as an idea. There is a sort of degradation, The house which I had in my mind is definitely more perfect than the building that is built outside. So this is a sort of degradation. That is alienation. Now these two words, you see, are very important, especially the word negation in Marx's philosophy. To Marx, the objectification is not alienation. To Hegel, the very act of, objectifying, that is the idea turning into the object, is alienation. Because the idea is not supposed to be a material thing. There is alienation. So the very presence of products, human products, denotes alienation. But in Marx, objectification doesn't degrade me, degrade the human. Another thing is, for Marx, human being means the concrete humans who can smell, who can who see with eyes, work together materially, physically with his eyes, and with his brain also he can work. So that concrete human beings working together in and through nature. They work in nature, they work with nature. How? In planting, in agriculture, the nature is working together, He is joining, he knows, when there is sunshine, the nature is providing everything for his material production. Then, what is alienation? What is alienation in Marxian philosophy? That is, the products I make do not alienate me, but the alienated nature of the products alienate me. How? Because the house I have built, it is my product, and that is going to be my abode. Okay? And my sense of beauty, my sense of color, all those things are revealed through that house, you see. But when I sell it, it becomes a commodity. It's no more a product. When the selling happens, this such alienation, begins with the arrival of private property. The so-called private property, creates the whole alienation. The beginning, starting point of human alienation is private property. Because before private property, everything that I produce, all the surplus that I produce, that is supposed to be shared with others. Because, sociality, in Marxist terms, humans are species being. There is no, unattached, isolated human being. Of course, now this fact is proved psychologically by Jacques Lacan. In Lacanian psychoanalysis, even my desire is not my desire, it is the desire of the other. Okay? So the Marx Engels Advaita, Kappen uses this word, Advaita, non-duality. That non-duality is shattered by Kappen in his writings. See, now a great philosopher, Slavoj's research, trying to, rebuild Marxism, to bring it back with all its glory. And even, he doesn't strongly do this, Of course, he criticizes Engels. One thing, you must remember, years back, Kappen did the same thing. Shattered this Marx, Engels, non-Advaita. So, it's very simple actually, just to read through Engels' book, Dialectic of Nature, where he gives 3 laws of the dialectic of nature. Then the whole dialectic process, everything is controlled by 3 natural laws. Okay? Then what is the role of humans? If everything is scientifically, they call the traditional Marxists called Marxism science of, socialism. Socialism is scientific. Classless society is scientific. That is, everything ought to happen. Whether you like it or not, we work against it or for that, ultimately socialism is a must, natural necessity. This is the dialectical materialism, the so-called dialectical materialism of Engels. This Engelsian dialectical materialism is far from the Marxian philosophy of revolution. Marx, Kappen says, Marx also uses the word material. Okay? Historical materialism, that's okay. Because there, with the arrival of humans, with the human intervention in nature, the whole dialectical cosmic drama becomes, in the whole drama, humans have a positive subjective role. So, the history of nature turns into human history. Okay? And why do you call it dialectical historical materialism? You remember, by matter, material, Marx means the socio-historical realities. It is the socio-historical realities of our life that controls. It is within that we work. Not, completely out of the, the material process. Humans have a positive role in the history. Then, of course, if you read Zizek, here this point, Zizek also brings in his, of course, many books are there in parallax, view. Other books you can see. He also points out the same point. To Marx, materialism doesn't mean something related to the crass materialism of the past, pre-Hegelian sort of materialism. That is not the materialism that Marx is speaking about. But it is that sort of materialism to which Engels takes Marxian philosophy. So, in this whole, dialectical transformation in the human society, private property enters. Then the human alienation begins, and it reaches its culmination in capitalism. So in capitalism, I am totally dehumanized, especially, the workers. Because, for Marx, alienation means, basically, the first type of alienation is alienation of the products or the alienated nature of the product. My product becomes something other than what it ought to be. It is no more, connecting link between me and others. It becomes a commodity. Even that product, its use value becomes of no importance. What is important is how much money you can get by selling it. That is commodification. Even in, I think, German ideology, Marx says that in capitalism, even love becomes a commodity. And today, of course, that prophet who spoke of love only, that is Jesus, is totally commoditized. Religion has become a commodity. Then, but the society is divided into different classes. Humans, are not supposed to be separated into different classes, castes and all that, Essentially, they are species beings. They are beings with the others. To put it in a Heideggerian term, we are beings in the others, with the others. But that sociality, that social essence of human life is thoroughly shattered. And the most alienated beings are the workers, the working class. They are exploited. Their products are alienated. And they are dehumanized. Gradually, again, the capitalist class owning the means of production and the laborers owning only their own, ability to work. This conflict, at a certain stage, the working class, the working people, they become aware of their own, predicament, their own alienated, dehumanized condition in the society. They become fully conscious of being the, waste of the whole capitalist mode of production. It is this awareness and the hope of overcoming this by their combined strength, by struggling against the existing, structures of domination. The hope of a new world comes to their mind, the dawn of a new world, that new world to which the whole humanity is tending. That is what Marx calls classless society. Well, let us come to the next part. That is, how this this Marx, this original Marx, himself was alienated in what is called Marxism. So, the dogmatic Marxism as it is known today, what is the basis, philosophical basis of that? That is dialectical materialism. And Kappen says, this terminology Marx never used. So, Zizek also, points out this problem of materialism in dialectical materialism. And he suggests another term for dialectical materialism. That is, instead of dialectical materialism, let us say materialist dialectics. I think it is in Parallax view. This is an example of the so-called, parallax shift. Those who are familiar with Zizek, can understand. Here just, two terms, materialism and dialectics, they are just interchanged. And there is a shift in the perspective, the whole perspective, because when we say dialectical materialism, the emphasis is materialism. And dialectical is just, an adjective for materialism. Whereas when you say materialist dialectics, say the emphasis is on dialectics. Materialism is just, and there also of course he too agrees, what Marx meant is not this materialism of the crass materialist, it is something different. Let us say next, what Marx really meant. Let's go a little more into that. See, in his time, there was materialism, the sort of the old type of materialism. That means everything is determined by the scientific laws, totally, denying human subjectivity in the whole history. That sort of material, in early writings you can see a long passage completely sort of, denying this sort of materialism. Marx has written, you might have seen, or you can read in the early writings. So that materialism which Marx calls crass materialism on one side, on the other side, what is idealism? That materialism totally denies subjectivity, human subjectivity. Then, what happens in idealism? There, for everything that happens, there is a subject. God is there. The idea is there. All such metaphysical concepts are there. Everything there, we can see subjectivity. But all these, metaphysical concepts deny the subjectivity, the subjective role of humans in history. Okay? So, we must keep away from these two, idealism and materialism. Then, as a synthesis, we have to, build up something, a new vision, a new hope. Okay? And that part, even, Marx uses the word, say, nature is the inorganic body of humans. The whole nature is my inorganic body. With all such perspectives, he finds a synthesis, and that synthesis Marx calls naturalism or humanism. In this, man, I mean human, because Actually, instead of man, actually better that we say woman, because woman contains man, a man. But let us say human. Humans humanize nature, and nature naturalizes humans. So the new vision, new philosophy that is to emerge must be naturalism or humanism. He doesn't say materialism. Now, it is, instead of this word, I have already told you, Sisek uses the word materialist dialectics. Then, now let us come to the second part of the talk. Already we have seen Kappen liberating Marx from the later product called Marxism. Next is, Kappen criticizes both Marx and Marxism. Kappen's critique of Marx and Marxism. This is what we want to see. Actually, this is the beginning. This, by this part of the talk, we are building the foundation, or we are finding the foundation of Kappen's philosophy of counterculture. So, of course, I can only give you some, ideas about this. Later in the next talk, I hope, the next talk will be on this countercultural perspectives of Kappen. There are only two things, I hope I will be able to explain in this context. One is ideology. What is ideology? In the Marxist party study classes, we know what ideology is. What is that? False consciousness. That means we become unaware of the realities of our life. Especially, the working class. Their condition as dehumanized, exploited, downtrodden people, they are not aware of that. Why? Because, all the other things like God, religion and all that sort of make them blind. That blindness, that is ideology. So to become, subjectively a revolutionary class, the working class must get rid of this ideology that is blinding them. How? Go to the party classes. That is the role of the party. It is the duty of the party to tell them, they are, misinformed. They cannot see things properly because there is God and religion. Give up God and give up religion. You are freed. You are pure, simple, revolutionaries. This is the Marxist concept of ideology. It is this thing that Zizek, demolished and rebuilt using Lacanian psychoanalysis. To Zizek, what is ideology? There is a statement in the Bible, they don't know what they are doing. They don't know what they are doing. Yes, that is ideology. Why we do things that we do not know. What we are doing, we do not know. because of certain forces working within us unconsciously. There, of course, to get the details of that, we have to go to the symbolic order of Lacan. In the symbolic order, there are myths, symbols, master signifiers and all that, having, control over human subjectivity. So, because of it is, ideology is actually the influence, the force of such, unconscious forces. Because of their existence, you see, we become unaware of the realities of our life. That is the Sisakian interpretation of ideology. But, as part of my editing the whole writings of Kappen, I was really surprised to see that all these things in one way or other, in his writings, Kappen has written much before than Zizek did it. His book, that, what is that, ideology, Sublime Object of Ideology, I think it was written in 1989. Much before that, that's almost the same thing. Except that, Kappen doesn't use the term symbolic order, which Zizek uses. But don't think Kappen was not aware of such things. In a later article, in the last years of his life, the title itself is Towards the Revolution of Symbols. And there in that, he uses the term symbolic universe. And that symbolic universe that Kappen speaks about is nothing other than the Lacanian symbolic order. Now let us see, in Kappen, what is ideology? How does he introduce ideology? He defines ideology as the belief systems and the value system within us that, unknowingly control our life, control our deeds. So, what we do, when we do something, we do not know what really we are doing. For this, Kappen gives many examples. One is, today, the Marxist party itself has become an opium of the masses. See, the statement that, religion is an opium of masses, a Marxist statement. How can we explain this with the Marxist concept of ideology? If we use Kappen's method, we can see how religion acts there. See, suppose you take the case of a struggle, trade union struggle, led by the communist parties. Okay, so as a revolutionary class, those who participate in the struggle must be led by the hope of creating a classless society. Their struggle must be against capitalism, against capitalist values, against capitalist mode of production and all that. But what is really happening? Nowadays, in all the, such leftist struggles against capitalism, unknowingly, they are supporting, they are arguing, for a place in the capitalist system, for a share in the benefits of capitalism. See, to put a Zizekian term, he says, he uses this phrase, being circumcised internally. Internal circumcision. He uses the term. Well, I would like to replace that with another phrase, that is internal baptism. The revolutionary members of the communist parties up to date internally baptized into capitalism. This is how, ideology works. What is really happening? These workers, before that their struggle and after their struggle, whenever they get some leisure time, they are sitting in front of the TV where all the advertisements about all the capitalist mode of results of the mode of production, or they have a desire. Their original desire for, the desire out of their original needs get distorted by these desires artificially produced by the media. So, whenever they struggle, they say in Kulab, let us be in it, part of it, unknowingly they are saying this. And it is the same thing that happened, according to Kappen, it is the same thing that happened to Christianity also. So Marxism today has become opium of the masses. Zizek somewhere says that today anti-fascism has become opium of the masses. Well, let it be so. I have taken one example that Kappen gives from Marxism itself. So let me give another example from my own experience. Today in the morning I happened to listen to a speech in a TV show by a Catholic priest. He was, of course, I think he never expected a person like me to hear that. He was telling about one saint, Martin de Porres. You know what he said? Martin de Porres was an African. Still, he was made a saint. And not only that, he was given a position in heaven as the mediator, heavenly mediator of the barbers. See, just two words you see. Still, okay, and made, he was made. That still, see, he was an African, still he was made a saint. That still denotes what? The racialism in his mind, ingrained in his mind. Also, he didn't say he became a saint. That's not what happened. What happened is that he was made a saint. Not only that, he is given a high position in heaven. He is the mediator, heavenly mediator. Whose mediator? The barbers. Here, I don't mean that he consciously, he is, at the level, of his, I think some saints intervene in my talk, disrupting me, because I am this all blasphemy, What really happens is, that man, he doesn't know what he is saying. And that is ideology. Why it happens? Because in his symbolic order, in his unconscious, you see, there is not only Jesus. Jesus is there at his, conscious level, influencing, of course, his sense of being who I am. that, that is ego in the Lacanian sense. At the ego level, he is, very philanthropic, and, he cannot have any racial affiliation, but unconsciously, the depth of his heart, there is another master signifier, the supreme master signifier, to me, the beginner of fascism in the world, in world history, by saying that I am the only God, that is Yahweh, God of Christianity, God of Semitic religions, as such. A God who totally, differentiated, discriminated his own people from other peoples. Okay, that biblical image, that master signifier, is what makes him speak like this. So this is how ideology works. Of course, there are a number of examples, given by Kappen in his writings, how this, ideology works in Mukti, of course, in heaven, all that. He finds a parallelism between Marxism and Christianity. You see, Jesus, that prophet, for him the kingdom of God was a hope. Kingdom of God where, everybody loves each other. That the arrival of that was a hope, and he even said that it has come. We have to work for it. We have to work together for it. Love each other. That's what that man Jesus said. But what happened to this Jesus and his sayings? Actually, Christianity took over everything. Jesus was replaced by that God, Yahweh, and the whole process of, our march towards or building the new heaven and the new earth here and now, that became a distant dream. Not even a dream, it's a reality. Kingdom of God will come, whether we cooperate or not. The subjectivity, our role in that is nil. God has decided to come again, and he will establish. And those who go on praying and praising God, he will escape. They will be in the new kingdom of God. Okay? Something quite similar happened in communism also. See, for Marx it was a big hope. But finally, that hope degenerated into a scientific truth in which human role is almost nil. Now, let us come to another criticism against Marxism that Kappen raises, that is regarding the formula of revolution, Marxist formula of revolution. There, Marx also agrees with that. What is revolution after all? In the society, two forces. In the capitalist society, there are two conflicting forces. The forces of production and forces of relations, productive relations and productive forces. Then, as Marx puts it, or in the manifesto, at a certain stage in the whole development of history, this conflict between productive forces and relations of production reaches its climax, and there productive relations become an obstacle, a factor for productive forces. Productive forces are supposed to ever, develop, go on developing. But what is to be changed? That is productive relations. This formula, of course, you see, we can explain this as in practical classes, they do it. See, in the transition from slavery to feudalism, we can see this. From feudalism to capitalism, we can see. It's okay, no problem. But the problem comes today, From our experience of today, we have to go back and criticize and correct the former theories. Today, can we, uncritically accept the gigantic development of productive forces, all the high technology and that, all technology that is, is destroying nature and destroying thereby, human beings, dehumanize us. In this present context, this theory of revolution that allows the productive forces to grow at any rate, ignoring the effect of that on humans and nature. This is the question that Kappen raises. Of course, this too is, mentioned in Sisekian writings. So, to my mind, Kappen is a predecessor of Sisek. So, well, actually, of course, there are other, criticisms, but we shall come to such things in the next talk. Because in the next talk, what I am going to do is, Kappen develops his own, theory of revolution. That theory, in that theory, any substantial revolution for restructuring the economic mode of production, restructuring the society as a whole, must be preceded by a counter-cultural revolution. Because, I have written an article on this, there is a book of mine, Ideology and Symbolic Revolution. In Malayalam, of course, I have written the first chapter is on this. I am trying to link Sisek with Kappen there. Because ideology and symbolic revolution. That ideology is the Sisekian definition of ideology. And the symbolic revolution I have taken from Kappen's article towards the revolution of symbols. So what is needed today is a revolution of symbols. But where are the symbols? They are in our symbolic universe. That is part of our unconscious. So our, urge to fight, our energy to fight against, all the things that is there against humans and nature, to release such, subterranean, that is Kappen's word, subterranean forces within us must be released, must be freed. How is it possible? It is possible by a sort of revolution that should take place within us in the symbolic order. Who can do that? Who can take initiative in that? Artists and visionaries and prophets. For Kappen, prophecy is an essential component of being human. Okay? So it is on this basis he comes to the Indian situation, world situation, and he develops his own philosophy of counterculture. That we shall discuss, try to understand more in my next talk. Today I am sure that there will be responses from you. Last time it was only an introductory talk. There was not much provocative statement from me. But today I expect criticisms and your responses, whether positive or negative. Post your comments in this page, and I shall try to. Another thing, this talk also will be there in academia.edu as a paper. Within a few days, I will be posting it there. The full, textual form of this talk will be available, will be made available here also. Thank you very much.